Welcome to the second video on how to set up notifications for iOS and Android using Supabase and Flutterflow. In this video, we're going to see how to configure the notification icon for Android, as well as how to deploy your app from Github. And then we're going to see how to set up notifications for iOS. Okay, so in the last video, we set up notifications to work on Android, but we didn't set up the Android icon. And if you don't set it up, what will happen is this launcher icon will be used inside of a circle. So if your launcher icon is squared, it will be used inside of a circle like this, but it will be fitted inside of the circle. So you'll get a white square inside of the circle, which doesn't look really good. What we want to do is achieve this look here. And to do so, we need to manually upload the icon. So what we do first, just going to move this out of the way. What we have to do first is push our project to GitHub. So I've already connected my project and I've already pushed it to GitHub. As you can see in GitHub, it created this Flutterflow branch, which is standard for Flutterflow. And we have a variety of folders in here. What we're interested in is this Android folder. So now we're going to go to Android Studio on our desktop and we're going to pull this project to start editing this Android branch. So I'm going to go ahead and open up Android Studio. Okay, so we're in Android Studio. I've got the Ladybug version, which came with some issues that we'll face later in this project. I'll tell you how to solve them to make it compatible with Flutterflow. But first, before we get there, we're going to open our project. I'm going to do get from VCS. Version control will be git. We're going to go back to GitHub, copy this. This is the URL to our project. Open up Android Studio, paste it, and clone this file. So there's a problem here. This already exists. We're going to do notify me too. We're going to trust the project, and by default is going to open up the project. But in our case, we actually don't want that to happen. We want to open up only this Android folder, because if we open up the entire project, it's not going to recognize our project as Android. And what we want to do here is have an Android option in this menu. So I'm going to close up this project. Okay. And we're going to open up our project Android folder. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. Okay. So I found my project in my directory, and you can see I already had a Notify Me project. We just created the Notify Me 2 project. And what we want to do is open up the Android file here. So I'm going to click on OK. This will open up the project. And what's going to happen is at the bottom here, it's going to say importing Android Gradle project. And that's usually when we'll get errors. The first error that you might get may not happen here. Okay, so we've got one of the two errors that we're expecting. The error that we didn't face in this specific example is documented in my guide. So if I scroll up to the notification section. Okay, so this is it. Create notification icons for Android. The first issue that I faced was with OpenJDK. And Android Studio comes with the most recent version of OpenJDK, whereas Flutterflow uses OpenJDK 17. So the workaround for this, at least as of December 2024, you download OpenJDK 17, and you go where Android Studio is installed under the JBR folder. That's where the most recent OpenJDK files will be stored. And you replace the content of that entire folder with the content of the folder you just downloaded. If you're working on different projects, you can save the content of the JBR folder to a temporary folder so that you don't lose whatever version of OpenJDK is stored in there. But we're going to take the content of this and copy and paste it to override all the content in this. So I'm just going to open up the JBR folder to give you an example. Okay, so I've opened up the JBR folder, as you can see, and what we would do is remove these. So I would delete all of these. Well, I'm not going to do it now, but you would delete all of these and replace them with what you downloaded here, which is a folder containing the same files, is just an older version. So once you do that, you can go in Android Studio, you can close the project and reopen it and see if you get the same error again. For me, it solved the OpenJDK problem. And then the next problem is this here. It says flutter.sdk not set in local properties. To fix this, you go to project, you go to local properties, and you can see we don't have flutter.sdk path set. So what we're going to do is add it to fix a problem. Flutter.sdk equals, and now here we just need to add a path similar to this. I don't know the path to my Flutter SDK, so I'm going to open up command prompt. I'm going to do flutter doctor-v. And if Flutter is installed on your computer, you will get this here. Flutter version is installed on channel stable at this specific location. So that's what we want to copy. We're going to paste that. I'm just going to remove the space here. We're going to do backslash for this and then escape all of the other backslashes. And I don't know where there's an A there. I'm going to save, and that's it. So at this point now, this local project should run. So I'm going to close it and reopen it. Notify me to Android. And now the importing of Android Gradle should work at the bottom. I don't know if it's, oh, there it is. Importing Android Gradle project. Once it's completed, we should get our Android drop down here. Okay, so the loading finished. It switched to Android automatically, but if it didn't, you should get this Android drop down menu. And this is the goal here. We want to go to this Android view to open up app and create our icons in the res folder. And so if things are not working for you, you need to figure out a way to get to this file. Once you have that, you can right click on the res file, click on new, image asset, which will open the asset editor. So what we're going to do for this scenario, we want to set up notification icons. So we're going to select notification icons. We're going to give it a name, IC notifications. And here it will ask you for your asset type. We have a logo that we want to import. So I'm going to select image. And to note here, whatever you import in here, that's not a transparent pixel, will be white. So if you have colors in your logo, they'll all disappear. So you need to have just an outline basically of your logo. I'm gonna go ahead and select my logo for this case. Okay, so I've selected my logo. I'm just gonna add some padding. This looks good. I'm gonna click on next. And this is showing you the output is gonna add these folders to the res folder. I'm gonna click on finish. And here you can see under drawable, you can see your notification icons is created. Now, what we want to do is create a color folder that will color this notification icon. Because as you can see, our icon is just white. And in our case, I want to display it as a purple icon, for example. So I'm going to go ahead and go under values. I'm going to right click on values and I'm going to create a values resource file. And we're going to name it colors.xml. I'm going to click OK. Okay, so by default, it will populate the folder or the file with this. If you go back to the guide, scroll down to here, we're going to copy this and paste it in here. And my accent in this case is just the name of your color. You can name this whatever you want. And in here, you will add the color that you want to use for your icon. Once that's done, you can see in this case, it's blue. Okay, it's this blue. I'm just going to leave it like that. Once that is done, we will go to manifest, Android manifest XML, double click it to open it. And we need to add some info about our icon and color in here just before the closing application tab. So application tag. So we're going to go to Notion. I'm going to copy the code here and I'm going to paste it in here. So now we have the icon path and the color path. You can see the color path is in green because it goes to values here, colors, and then we named it My Accent. But there's an issue with our icon, and that's because we didn't name it Notify Icon. We actually named it IC Notification. So I'm going to start typing that. IC Notifications, there it is. I'm going to select it. And that's done. Now the only thing that's left to do is to set this project to release mode, because when you export from Flutterflow, it will add signing as debug. And if you try to deploy this to the App Store, it's going to give you an error. So we're going to go to project view again under app build.gradle. I'm going to open this up. So build.gradle, scroll all the way to the bottom, and you can see here signing config. We're going to type in release instead of debug. And now we're done with this. I can close out everything. And this is it for notification icons. So now all that's left to do is push back our project to GitHub so that we can deploy it from Flutterflow. So I'm going to do in this project, I'm going to move up one folder, cd ... Okay, git init. It's already existing. So I'm going to add our modifications to commit them. Git add dot git commit. I'm going to add a message. Okay, now we're going to push our project onto a different branch in GitHub. And the reason we want to do this is to separate whatever is pushed from Flutterflow to GitHub from our modifications, just so it's easier in the future. So I'm going to go ahead and push our project to GitHub to a new branch that I will name notifications. So I forgot to create the branch. Git checkout -b. We're going to create it notifications. That's the name that we wanted. Okay, and now we can do git push origin notifications. Okay, so I'm going to go to GitHub to check out our newly pushed project. So I'm just going to refresh this page. We can see the project is here now. I'm just going to confirm one of the modifications. I'm going to go under Android app build Gradle. Here we signed with release. There it is. So everything is good. So at this point, you can go back to Flutterflow and you can go to mobile deployment. And here the deployment source will be GitHub. I'm going to use GitHub and our branch name is notifications. So now you can deploy your project to Android and the notification icon, a notification icon should be circular and not a square. So at this point, all that's left to do for us to set up notifications for this app is to build the iOS version of notifications. So we're going to go ahead and do that. All right, so to set up iOS notifications, we have one requirement, and that is we need to use Xcode. Without Xcode, you won't be able to enable the capabilities and you won't be able to deliver notifications. So I personally don't have a Mac, so I can't run Xcode. And my workaround for this was to use something called Mac in Cloud. Now, I'm not affiliated with them. It's just the first solution that I found that worked. I'm going to show you which plan I got because at first it didn't work, and it's because I was using a Mac that was too recent. So I got this managed server plan here. And if you go to buy plan, they actually let you decide which version of the macOS you want to run. And I started with this one, the Sonoma 14.7.2, and that didn't work because the Xcode versions on that server were too recent for Flutterflow. So I had to get downgraded to this one, the macOS Ventura 13, and that is to use, I believe it's Xcode 14.3.1. So by using this version of the macOS, I was able to install Xcode 14.3.1 on the server. So I'm currently connected to the server. It's here. I've connected my GitHub account as well so that I can pull the Flutterflow branch for our project. And I'm just going to show you quickly what apps are installed on this server. So you can see that when I go to applications and scroll all the way to the bottom, there are multiple versions of Xcode installed on this server, and the one that we're going to use is this particular one, 14.3.1, and that is as of December 2024. If you use a more recent version, you'll be able to do the same steps. It's just that when you go to deploy with Flutterflow, you'll get issues with compatibilities and such. So we're going to go back to our guide, and we have 3 quick steps to complete here. They're actually pretty simple to do. The first thing is to connect our Firebase project with our Apple developer account. So if you go to Firebase and we go to settings and cloud messaging, if we scroll down here, we're going to see no API and auth keys. And that's because we haven't uploaded them yet. But the first thing we're going to do is this. So I'm going to go to my Apple dev account. I'm going to go to keys. And before doing this, I would highly recommend that you go to Flutterflow and you deploy your project to Apple. So if you go to mobile deployment, I'm just going to uncheck this. That's from previous testing. So you do a standard deployment to the App Store. This is going to create certificates and signing profiles and all the good jazz that you need here to create your key. Once you have deployed your app, you don't need to push it to the App Store itself. Just deploy a build. So you just need to deploy here. Once that is finished, then you can go and create your your key, and you won't encounter any issues. So what we're going to do is create a new key. I'm just going to name it Flutterflow notifications. And the only thing we need to enable is Apple push notifications. So I'm going to click on continue and register. And now don't click away. You need to download this before closing it. You can't download it later, so make sure not to lose this key. So I'm going to copy the key ID here, and I'm going to download this file. I'm going to go back to Firebase. I'm going to click on upload. I'm going to enter the key ID that I copied, and the APN key here, I'm going to add it. There it is. And if the team ID is not auto-populated for you, then on your Apple Dev profile, the team ID is the number listed under your account here. So in this case, it's 2A6, and it's the same one as the pre-populated one. So we're good. I'm going to click on upload, and that completes step number 5. Okay, so now we need to enable push notifications for our package. The package in question is the package linked to your project. So if you go in Flutterflow, app details, this will be the package that we need to enable notifications for. And if you have deployed your project before via this button, like we talked about earlier, then your package should already be in the App Store. So I'm just going to exit this and go back to where we were earlier. So we've got identifiers here. I'm going to click on that. And here we have all of our package identifiers. And you can see we have our Notify Me package. I'm going to click on it. And here we need to enable push notifications. So if I scroll down, we're going to find push notifications. And in this case, it's already enabled because I've enabled it previously to confirm that everything was working. But in your case, it's probably not going to be enabled. So you just check this box and you save. And that's it. That's step number 6 completed. Now, all we have to do is open up our project in Xcode, edit 2 settings, and push it back to GitHub. And at this point, we'll be able to deploy our project just like we did for Android. So I'm going to go to our Mac server, and we're going to set up to download our code locally. Okay, so I'm in the Mac and Cloud server. I've opened up the command terminal, and I've connected my GitHub account. And what I'm going to do now is download this project locally on the server, and then we'll edit it and push it back with the modifications. So I'm just going to copy the project URL. There it is. I'm currently in documents on this, and you can take a look at the folder. Documents is empty. So I'm going to do git clone and paste the link. Okay, we have our folder. I'm just going to navigate into it. I'll do cd notify me. There it is. And then we'll do git checkout Flutterflow to check out our Flutterflow branch. We're already on the Flutterflow branch. Now what we're going to do is create our independent branch. So we'll create an iOS branch for this. Just going to close this out, and we're going to name it iOS notification. So I'll do git branch, git checkout -b, capital B, and we'll type iOS notifications. And this is going to copy our Flutterflow branch into a new branch called iOS notifications. So I'm going to do this, and now we're also switched to this branch, and we're ready to open up our project in Xcode. So I'm going to open up Xcode, and specifically I'm going to open up Xcode 14.3.1. And here I'll open up a project or file. We have our notify me file, and we need to open up the iOS folder. Okay, so now that's the project is opened. We're going to ignore every error that we see. We're going to select runner, top left, and then the target is going to be runner again, signing capabilities. We're not going to touch any of the team or bundle identifier stuff. We're going to click on capability. We'll add push notification and a background mode. And for background modes, we're going to check background fetch and remote notifications. And that's it. That's all you need to do to your project. Now we're going to push it back to GitHub, and we're ready to deploy. So I'm going to do git add dot and git commit -m with a message, added notifications. And then we'll do git push origin, and our branch is called iOS notifications. Okay, and that's it. We're done with the server. So now I'm going to go in GitHub to confirm the push. Actually, I can just check here. We actually have our branch that was added 2 seconds ago. So the push worked. At this point, we're just going to go to Flutterflow, and we're ready to deploy. Okay, so I'm back in Flutterflow, and to deploy this project, just like we did for Android, you would select the deployment source as GitHub. And in our case, the branch name is iOS notifications. And from there, you can deploy to the App Store. And the rest is just like for Android notifications. The only difference is that when you push a notification to Firebase, it gets routed to Apple and then to your app. But at this point, you're going to be able to deploy your app and send notifications to your iOS users. Now, the only thing that's left in this entire setup is to actually deliver the notifications. So in the first video, we set up Android. In this video, we've set up iOS, but we don't actually have a way to automate notifications. So what we're going to do now is we'll move back to Supabase. We'll take a look at our table, and then we'll go in Buildship and set up a notification code that will handle everything automatically. Okay, so we're in Supabase now, and in the first video, we talked about the columns for table notifications. Since then, I've modified the code that we're going to use a bit. So if you're following this guide, even if you watched a video number 1, it's going to be the same thing. Before publishing both videos, this guide will have been updated. The only modification is that every column is now text. Before that, the params column was a JSON. Now I've changed it to text to simplify things so that you can store your path and parameters as a string. So in order for the code that we're going to use to work, you just need a table named notifications. It needs to have title, message, route, a user ID referencing to our users table, where you can find FCM tokens and the last date, as well as the parameters, which are text. So now we're going to go to Buildship. I've already started a flow, but nothing is set up. The only thing I've done here is to connect Supabase. So I've connected Supabase in integrations, and we're going to use our Supabase connection as a trigger for this workflow. So the idea here is that whenever a row is added to this Supabase table, it will trigger a notification to be delivered. So in Buildship, we're going to start by adding a connection. The connection will be Supabase, or the trigger, sorry. Trigger will be Supabase. The project ref is going to be found in Supabase. So I'm going to go to project settings, project ID. I'm going to copy it, paste it. The events that we're going to watch is just insert. This table schema is public, and the table name is notifications, this here. We're going to connect our table. Okay. Now, we want to get some schema for this input. So whenever the table or the workflow is triggered, it's going to come with some data like old row and new row. And we want to automatically populate this. I'm going to go to build here, top right. I'm going to ship changes. Okay, so now our trigger is active and there's nothing, it does nothing. But I'm going to go to Supabase, to notifications, and I'm just going to insert a random row. Okay, I'm going to hit save. And all that will do is that it will send sample data to this workflow. And now, if we go to trigger, we can try to find data. And you can see it's going to automatically detect what we need to use for our workflow. So the only thing that we need is the record. We don't need the old record because there's no update. There's actually just an insert. So there's only a new record. And we're going to add this to the schema. And that's it. Okay, so we're going to go to build, and here we're going to add a node. We don't need to worry about the inputs. They're automatically created from the trigger. So we're going to add an empty node, and here we can name this one send a notifications. Okay, and we're going to move into this node. The inputs that we're going to need are the Supabase URL, the Supabase key, and then we need the row and 3 inputs for Firebase. So the first thing that we need is Supabase URL. The next one is Supabase service role. I believe I named it. We're going to go to our code here in the guide. Yes, Supabase service role. Input number 3 is going to be the new row. And this is the only input that we're going to need to change the type for. And this one is an object. Input number 4, project ID. Input number 5 is the Firebase private key. And the last input, Firebase client email. Firebase client email, and that's it. That's good. And now we're going to copy this whole code here and paste it in this node logic. And what this code will do is it creates a client for your Firebase project. So it will initialize Firebase, it will initialize Supabase, and based on the new row, it will go and fetch the FCM token for the user ID. And then from this FCM token, it will push a notification with route and the parameters. And then our code in Flutterflow will open up based on this, on the route and parameters. And if there's nothing, it just opens the app on the homepage. So we can save this here, save top right. And now we need to populate this. So the only thing we have so far is the row, which is named record at the top. So I'm going to add that there. I'm just going to delete the quotes here. And inputs, record. There it is. Now, Supabase URL, that's pretty straightforward. You go to Supabase, project settings, API, and then the URL is here. And your service role is here. So you click on reveal, copy it, and you can go then to settings for your project here, secret keys, and you can add a secret key here and enter the value for your Supabase service role. You can see I've already done it. So I'm going to go to our workflow again. The Supabase URL I can paste directly. The Supabase service role is going to be an environment variable, Supabase service role. And now we have Firebase. Let me just switch out my screen here. We have Firebase project ID, private key, and client email to set. So if you go to your Firebase project, go to settings, general. This is your project ID. You can copy it and paste it here. The client email, if we go back, cloud messaging, or actually service account. This is your email, Firebase service account email. It's a super long email. You copy it and you paste it. And now the private key, you need to download in this same screen. So under service account, Firebase admin SDK, generate a new private key. And generate key again. This will download a JSON file that we're going to open up in a sec. But what I've done in this code here is that it will take the Firebase private key and parse whatever it needs in there so that it's formatted properly. So of the downloaded JSON file, I'm just going to open this. I'm going to open it with Notepad. Okay, you can see it's got a bunch of data in there. But what we want to select is everything starting with the dashes here for private key inside the quotes. So inside the quotes here, including this, and we scroll all the way to the bottom. Okay, we're at the bottom. I deleted a bunch of the private key, just security purposes here, but we want to select from here inside the quote all the way to here at the end. And we copy this, go to Buildship, and this is what you would put in your secret key here, Firebase secret key. That's what you put in there. Okay, so at this point, let me just add it here. Okay, we can deploy this, and at this point, all that's left to do is test. And to do this, we're going to run a version of our project locally, and what we're going to do is just insert in our notifications table. We're going to insert a new notification, a new message, a new route, and the parameters. And to test that this works properly, what I've done is inside our project, if we go to our pages, I've created a new page called demo. And this demo page takes in two parameters, one named ID, one named title. So if they are passed to this page, they will display on the screen. So what we're going to do is we're going to run the app, exit the app so that it's in the background, and then we'll push a notification to take us to demo with parameters to see that it routes us properly. So I'm going to go ahead and set this up, and then we're going to test our app. Play Store. Okay, so we have the app running, and just so nobody gets confused here, when we will send a notification, we actually won't see our logo yet because this is not the version that we pushed through GitHub in the first video. This is just a local run set up with Flutterflow here. And so we will just see the Flutter icon as per usual. So I'm going to go ahead and go to Supabase. I'm going to open this up here on the side. And what we'll do is send a notification to this user. I've toggled the switch off and on with it just updates the FCM token for this and enables notifications. So I'm going to go ahead and add a notification row. Okay, so in Supabase, I'm adding a title, a message, a route, which is demo. This route is found in Flutterflow. This demo page, the route is demo. The user UUID is the one linked to this running app. And then the parameters are typed just like you would type them in a web browser, so in a URL. So we have ID is equal to 125. This is just a random number. And title, it says, yeah, they work. With spaces in there, you can store it like this, and it will display like that in Flutterflow in your app. So I'm going to go ahead and before we do that, just swipe away so that the notifications get delivered. And then in Supabase, we're just going to save this. Okay, and we're going to see if we get a notification. We did get a notification. I'm going to swipe down, and it says you have a new message. Notifications can now route properly. We'll see if they actually do. I'm going to click on it, and we get taken to the demo page, and our ID and title display properly. So that's how you can set up notifications to route properly in your app. It's pretty straightforward, and this will work for iOS and Android. Now, the only thing that's not handled yet and that you can implement yourself is displaying notifications while the app is active. Okay, so to implement in-app notifications, you need to do a few things. The first thing will be to create specific variables in the app state. So before we go and create the app state variables, I'm just going to go to custom code and initialize FCM handling. And in there, you'll see which variables we need to create. So if you scroll down and locate the handle foreground message section of this code, you'll see a bunch of the code is commented out, and that's because by default, this code that you'll have access to won't handle notifications in app, just when the app is closed. So to enable this, you'll remove the asterisk and slash there. This will reactivate the code, and now you'll need to create 4 different app state variables that will be used to display notifications. So the first one is a boolean called is foreground notification visible. The second one is just title. You can change this to whatever you want here. You can change, let's say you want to call it title 2. You just type title 2, and now your app state variable needs to match this title exactly. So the next one is message, and then the last one is notification path. So I'm going to save this action code here. I'm going to go to app state variables, and you can see we have our 4 app state variables. And what we're going to do for now is use these variables to dynamically display our notification as they come in. So it's pretty simple the way it works. I created a custom component, or actually just a component. It's not a custom component. I just created a component for notifications, and it will display the title, the message, and then on I click here, it will animate the notification bar to swipe up, and then update the app state to say notification is not visible. And what you can do to use this on your pages is just stack this component on top of your content and add a foreground notification conditional to it. So you set the visibility conditional to the flag that we have in the app state. So when a notification comes in, the app state will update, it will rebuild, this will appear, and then in my component, I've set a 2-second timer, which is maybe a bit short, but for demonstration's purposes here, on initialization, my component waits 2 seconds, animates up, updates the app state to reset everything, and rebuilds. So then the banner disappears, and then the widget will reset completely. So let's go ahead and test this out. So I still have my project running here. I'm on the home page, and we're going to go in Supabase. We're going to insert a new row. And this time we're going to leave the app running so that we can see it. So we'll call it in-app notification. The route, we'll do demo. We will, first time we'll click on the notification. If I go to this here, when we click on this container, so I've got the container selected, it just launches the URL from the app state notification path. And after this, you should add a reset app state as well. Let's just do it now. Update app state. We're going to reset. We're just going to clear all the values. And we're going to do no rebuild. Okay, this, we're just missing one. Set value to false, and this will navigate away. So, okay, now it should be set. It's just going to reload the app, and we're going to add our row in Supabase. I'm going to select the connected user here. Parameters, we'll do ID is equal to, let's just do John. And so when we click on our notification banner, it should take us to the demo page and show ID is equal to John. And we have another parameter that's not passed, that's not going to be included here. So I'm going to save this. We should see our notification pop up in our app. There it is. And that was a bit too quick. So we're getting an error here. And I think that's just my reset action on the dismiss. Yeah, it's probably this. So, and this here, reset animation, I'm going to delete those. And for this time, I'm just going to wait. Let's do 5 seconds. Okay, so we're going to redo that, and then we'll be able to click on it. Okay, let's do another one. Insert row. Let's do ID is equal to John again, and then same user. There it is, save. Okay, I clicked on it, navigated to the demo page with ID is equal to John. So that's how you can set up in-app notification. It's not ideal, but it's the simplest way to set it up now, because when we initialize these pieces of code here, these custom actions, we cannot, because they're used in main.dart, we cannot have arguments or build context, which is kind of required to display things on screen. So the easiest workaround is just using app state, and that way you're able to manage in-app notifications. So that's it for this guide. At this point, you're able to create notifications for iOS, Android, and manage them in-app or when the app is asleep. If you like this video, leave a like, and if you want to learn more, feel free to comment and give me ideas, and I'll see you in the next one.